This is the Plum Apple Pippinator from CPF Lures. I like the size we're looking for. There we go. What's up, guys? It's Captain Erik Tilson, and today I want to talk to you guys about my top techniques for finding and catching big bass in the heat of the summer. That's right, it's July. It's ridiculously hot. The fishing has gotten really tough. I've compiled a list right here, guys. I'm gonna go over with you guys in this video, kind of starting from the top of what I like to try to look for first and work my way down the bottom of the list. Now, this is not a tier, so some days some of these patterns are going to work better than others, and vice versa. Other days, maybe a pattern that I get to last will work better. It just depends on the day. It's going to depend on a couple of influencing factors like weather and rain, and we'll get into all that. First and foremost, guys, the first thing I like to go and look for in the summertime when it's hot, and you guys know this from some of my past videos, is there a frog bite? That's right. My favorite way to catch big fish most of the year is going to be on topwater. But in the summertime, when that water temp is 90 degrees plus, things like submerged vegetation, which are manufacturing oxygen in the water, are going to be crucial to being around a lot of fish and being around bigger fish. There's kind of a point in the year where we get to in the summertime where a lot of that offshore water in Lake Toho, especially if we're in a drought, we haven't had a lot of rain, we haven't had a lot of flow, kind of becomes stagnant, and the dissolved oxygen in that water is going to get a little low for some of those fish. And so you'll kind of start to notice a lot of your fish in the lake kind of gravitating back towards vegetation. And there's two big reasons why that happens. One, it's watershed from rain. And two, they're looking to get into submerged aquatic vegetation, because that submerged vegetation is going to be a little bit more oxygen dense around it, which, as you guys know, we all need oxygen to survive. So I like to go for a frog bite anytime I'm on the water this time of year. But where am I going to go throw that frog? Well, I'm always going to try to be around and look for topped out matted vegetation. If I'm in a lake that's got hydrilla, I'm going to go try to find topped out hydrilla that is preferably deeper than a couple feet of water. If I can find topped out hydrilla out there in 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8, 9, 10 feet of water, that's going to be ideal. But I do like to find hydrilla, peppergrass, anything that's going to be topping out and making a mat on the surface, because that mat is going to provide some shade. So you've kind of got a couple things working for you now. You've got the submerged aquatic vegetation manufacturing oxygen in the water, but now you've also got a surface mat, which is producing shade and helping to keep those water temperatures down a little bit, which is also going to help boost the oxygen in the water. You're going to have a lot of life attracted to it. You're going to have a lot of big fish in there. On Toho right now, we don't have a ton of topped out hydrilla, but what we do have a lot of is really healthy peppergrass, or what they call Illinois pondweed. South end is pretty much ringed with it. A lot of it's topped out, and it's a healthy environment. On those hot sunny days you get in and around it, you're going to hear a lot of brim and bluegill popping the surface in there. So as a result, I like to get in that topped out peppergrass. I like to throw a frog, and a frog can work anywhere. If you're on a shoreline that maybe the Kissimmee grass is kind of what you're targeting, and you've got some holes or some sparse grass back there in the back, don't be scared to throw that frog back there in the back of that Kissimmee grass, or a swim jig. One super important thing that I kind of wrote down here to make note of is going to be water clarity. Water clarity is not necessarily everything, but like, for example, on Lake Toho right now, we've got a lot of water on the south end that's very poor. It's, split pea soup green. There's big algae bloom happening in it. It's got that real thick green soupy look to it. if you find yourself fishing around water that looks like that, that can be really tough and that can be pretty unproductive most days. I usually will recommend trying to get around some water that's got some good clarity to it. You kind of want to be on that, tannic, kind of blackish, brownish water that Lake Toho has, that has some good water clarity to it. And, especially throwing topwater, because that's going to give your fish the ability to track your bait for a much greater distance. They're going to see it, they're going to hear it, and they're going to probably come for it from a little bit farther away. You can still catch fish in that really nasty green stuff, but I think you're going to find your bite is going to be a lot slower, and they may short strike or miss your bait quite a bit. All right, so the next one I've got here is going to be a flipping bite. This is going to probably, if I can find it, you're talking about probably my number one, if not number two, favorite pattern to figure out, especially on the Kissimmee chain in the summer months, is where is a shoreline that offers really thick, matted and laid over Kissimmee grass, but also has really good water clarity. If I can find that, I can usually find a jig flipping bite or like a 1/2 ounce with a creature bait, something like the P&P Reaper, and flipping the outside edge of the grass. And it's not even necessarily the outside edge. You've kind of got like a sweet zone that you kind of want to target in there, and I would say it's from the outer edge of the grass back, anywhere and everywhere in there in that grass that looks good. Maybe you've got a patch of reeds that's, within flipping distance. Now, I'm not saying to put the trolling motor on 100 and venture, 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile up into the grass, because you're going to start losing your water depth. This time of year, I feel like it's pretty important to focus on the outer edge. But when I say flipping outside grass, I don't mean necessarily focusing on flipping the outside edge of the grass all the time. Now, as the sun comes up during the day, if you're on a flipping bite, they definitely get more on the outer edge, but you can definitely catch fish making a long flip to a clump of pads, making a long flip to a patch of reeds, or maybe you see a hole in the grass like we were just talking about, and you bomb a frog in there. Talking about water clarity is kind of crucial here, guys. It's summertime, water's hot, the dissolved oxygen is low. And so with that being said, these fish are a little less willing to venture around and move around and burn a lot of energy when there's not a lot of oxygen to absorb out of the water. And so if you find yourself fishing in water that's pretty nasty, a lot of times you pretty much have to drop your bait right on top of their nose. So I like to find good water clarity. You're going to hear me harp on water clarity quite a bit in this. I don't like really hot, nasty, stagnant, algae bloom water. Fishing usually gets pretty tough around that kind of stuff. So we talked about the frog bite, submerged vegetation that's topped out, working a frog on top of it. We talked about the flipping bite, flipping the outside edge of that Kissimmee grass. We're looking for the thicker, matted up, kind of call it the cage, where you get a bunch of strands of Kissimmee grass that are real thick, but they've kind of fallen over because the water level is low right now. Water clarity is super important. And kind of the way that I like to work my day is as it gets hot and kind of that 10, 11, 12 o'clock range, I kind of start noticing that, all right, well, maybe my frog bite has died a little bit. Maybe my flipping bite has now died a little bit. I'm going to start moving out, and I'm going to start looking for a little bit deeper stuff. When I start moving out to the middle of the lake looking for deeper stuff to target, I try to find grass before I worry about brush, okay? A lot of people tend to get hung up on trying to find brush piles, and brush piles are good. I'd be lying to you guys right now if I told you that brush pile fishing in the summertime wasn't good. Brush pile fishing offshore in the summertime has been good since the beginning of time all over the country. But I will tell you, grass is better than brush, okay? Brush doesn't produce oxygen. Brush is not nearly as good as an environment for all the fish. You take a nice sized brush pile it can hold some fish, it can hold some bait. Fish are going to come and go throughout the day. But if you compare that to maybe an offshore clump of hydrilla that's maybe the size of my boat, and it's out there in the middle of the lake in 6 to 10 feet of water, a patch of hydrilla that big is going to manufacture a ton of oxygen. It's going to have better water quality in and around it, and it can house a ton of fish. I mean a ton of fish, because now we're offering cover from the bottom all the way to the surface, as well as it's in a pretty decent sized area, but they can be anywhere in and around that stuff. I found clumps of hydrilla on Toho before in the months of June, July, and August that probably had 50 to 100 fish living in it. And I know because I know how many of them I caught out of it. So grass is always better than brush. I like fishing brush, but if I can find isolated clumps of grass offshore in the summertime, I know in my mind that the potential for it to have more and better quality fish is there. You know, you find a good brush pile and you run to it one day, it might be good for 1 or 2 good fish. You find a really good clump of offshore grass and you run to it one day, you might catch 10, 15, 20 good fish off of it. So grass, always better than brush if available. And again, water quality is crucial. And right now, the north end of Lake Toho, especially where the water comes in from the East Lake Toho Canal into Goblet's Cove, as well as water coming in from Shingle Creek, that section of the lake is fishing better than the south end right now. But, you know, like I said, grass is better than brush once we move out. If there is no offshore grass to be found in a good water depth, especially if throughout the day you're kind of fishing, you're finding that there's a certain water depth that seems to be holding more fish, okay, well, we need to go look for something they might be relating to. You may not be able to find grass and you may have to fish brush. Or if you're looking for brush and you come across a nice clump of grass, then we just scored a huge win. When it comes to targeting offshore things in the summertime, personally, I like to slow down. I'm always going to go for a big worm. This time of year, big soft plastics are probably the most effective bait that you can throw. It's slow moving and it presents a very easy meal for a bass that's not wanting to move or chase very much. Now their metabolism is cranking right now. We got water temp in the 90s, you know, mid to high 80s some days. We're seeing water temp on some of these lakes around here in the low to mid 90s. These fish are hungry. Their metabolism is firing right now. Problem is, there's not a lot of oxygen in the water. It's very hot. So they're gonna kind of hunker down and they spend a lot of time feeding at night. But largemouth bass, like other predatory fish, are opportunistic feeders, meaning they will eat something if the opportunity presents itself. What better thing to eat during summertime than a big, giant, slow-moving meal? So I like a big worm. I'm talking a 10-inch ribbon tail, even bigger, you could go 12.5-inch ribbon tail, big 8-inch trick worm, big speed worm, whatever the case may be. Even a big swim bait. I've had a lot of luck in the summertime slow rolling a big soft plastic swim bait through offshore grass or brush. So as it gets hot during the day and you start to lose your shoreline bite, don't be scared to venture out. Get that big worm out. Maybe put down the moving baits and the super aggressive baits. Go to that big worm, find a brush pile, find some grass. Kind of like what we talked about in the last video. You know, you can use the MyFWC website to get coordinates to those state fish attractors that are in a lot of these lakes around here. Now, I talked about in the last video on Lake Toho, we've got several of those state fish attractor piles out there. Those offer a ton of cover. Those are pretty big piles and they put a bunch of them in some really good locations. A couple of other things I kind of want to talk about that, depending on the year that we're having, we kind of start seeing it usually a little bit later in the summer, especially with some tropical storm activity. We start getting caught up on our rainfall around Central Florida. But current is a huge deal this time of year. Current is going to bring some oxygenated water to a lake that was very stagnant. These lakes around here have been designed and have canals, creeks, locks, drainage systems, whatever, to get rid of a lot of rain when we get a lot of rain, to prevent flooding. Current in the summer months is huge. Current's huge year round, but especially in the summer. When you add some current to a lake somewhere that's been sitting stagnant for several months with the water temp in the 80s and 90s, it's going to fire those fish off like crazy. They're going to get stacked up on current breaks and they're going to go into a feeding frenzy. So one super important thing that I always like to try to look for if it's available to me during the summer is there some current flow somewhere? Is there a storm drain that's got water running out of it? Do they have the locks there at the south end of Toho open and flowing water out of it? Are they flowing water out of East Lake? Is there water flowing out of Shingle Creek? I've had days before where the rest of the lake was sucking and we pulled up into a good current spot fishing a current break and we're able to catch a lot of fish and some big fish. So kind of another key thing to pay attention to in the summertime, is there some current somewhere? Where's the current coming from? What's the water quality of that current? You know, because if you've got just straight mud coming in there, it's probably not going to be the best thing. But a lot of times what you find in Central Florida is that water that's flowing into your fishery is pretty good water, and those fish are going to stack up in front of it. They can sit there in the current, food's coming to them, that water is going to be a little bit cooler, it's going to be more oxygenated. Current flow is a big deal in the summertime. You're going to have a really strong morning feed and a really strong evening feed, and a lot of days, simply because their metabolism is cranking so much right now, you're going to get another feed around midday. They can only go so long without eating. They have to eat calories this time of year to sustain, healthy body weight. Like I said, we started from the top. I always try to find a frog bite. Frog bite's going to be good because chances are you're fishing around submerged vegetation that's very thick. It's going to offer a lot of good fishing. Moving into a flipping bite, water quality is super key. As it gets really hot and those fish kind of slow down, moving out offshore, we're looking for offshore grass, offshore brush, something for those offshore fish to relate to. Then getting out of that, kind of start getting into some of those wild cards. I'm talking about current. Current's a big one this time of year. If it's available to you, don't sleep on it. It's gonna be super effective. Well, that's about it, guys. It's summertime, it's tough, the water's hot, the fishing is slow. Try these techniques next time you're out on the lake. Let me know in the comments if it helped you at all. Till the next one, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, stay tuned to the channel. I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Punch mats, guys, punch mats. Make bass fishing great again.